It was known as gospel's golden age. Before the age of social media, scandal ran rampant. It was seen and heard of, talked about, whispered amongst the curious and inquiring minds.
Will be crowned, yes it will. One of these days, the cloud will be. Tell everybody, even in the revenue. Tell them when
no different in times past than now. During its golden age, the gospel circuit was full of dangerous highways, scandalous stories, and outrageous performances. Auditoriums and concert halls would fill with white spectators who enjoyed these shows. For African Americans, it was a spiritual experience, reviving and healing their broken lives. Considered a gospel novelty act was 700-pound Gloria Spencer.
He's been better to me than I've been to myself. You know, it isn't every day that you see a young lady, 5'2" and a half, weighing 600.
Billed as the world's biggest gospel singer due to a genetic disorder, Gloria was not ashamed of her weight and sang most of her testimony based on her morbid obesity. A fate her 625-pound older sister passed away from not too long before her own death. No doubt Gloria had a beautiful voice and moving spirit. But she seemed to know her life would end early at the tender age of just 39 in 1976. She had complained of chest pain to her husband, who then took her to the hospital, where she then died from cardiac arrest. But she already planned her own funeral, which she requested Shirley Caesar sing. She wanted a service according to Jet magazine. And that's what she had. The world's largest gospel singer had over 6,000 mourners in attendance, and many people who danced, shouted and cried, even passed out. The service was over 6 hours long to the 2,000-seat church.
A man walked up to me, said, Gloria, if I was you, said tomorrow I would go to the casket company and have all my burial taken care of now. So when it's your time to go, said you wouldn't put your family through so much trouble. I said, brother, it wasn't no trouble.
Clara Ward was born in 1925 to Gertrude and George Ward in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Gertrude lost her newborn infant son to an illness after his birth. It left her devastated. Willa just 2 years older than Clara. As children, they rummaged and played through the high-floor building they shared with Gertrude's sister and brother-in-law. Willa explained while the adults were at work, Clara almost fell to her death in the high-story building they resided in, something she'd never forget. This sibling instinct stuck with Willa Renee as long as Clara lived. Gertrude was a woman of wit and power, and didn't take no for an answer, having started the girls singing in the church very young at the age of 7. Every competition and church program she'd plead to be on with the Ward singers. In fact, Gertrude was such a force, many in church would hurry away when they saw her coming. Some way, somehow, this would shape Clara into the star she'd become in the future. Going on Broadway, Radio City Music Hall, and across seas. Mother and Father Ward would visit concert halls and theaters where the biggest performers of the time would play and sing their hearts out. Gertrude thoroughly enjoyed the shows, but with her religious judgment declared they were all bound to hell. Perhaps she learned something from their showmanship. Clara's life was filled with much heartache as she longed for love, her sister recalls. Having eluded Mother Gertrude's attempts to stop any man from getting close to her. Believing everyone close to her had ulterior motives, Gertrude warned Clara to keep men at bay. Even her first and only marriage was short-lived and any hope had dwindled. Had Gertrude not interfered, she probably would have had a healthy relationship. The blurred lines were night and day within Clara's sexuality, according to her sister Willa, often participating in same-sex relations under Mother Gertrude's prying eyes. Female companionship was just a substitute. Seemingly it was a lot easier to be with a woman under an unassuming guise of friendship. The loneliness set in despite the success. But all was not lost. There was C.L. Franklin, the young charismatic preacher from Memphis.
Will be drawn. Yes, it will. One of these days, the cloud will be lifted. Yes, it will. Ow! Yeah! One of these days.
But C.L. did not come without his own past. He had fathered a child by a 12-year-old parishioner in Memphis before migrating to Detroit. Just 2 years before Aretha's birth in 1942. Clara had been Aretha Franklin's idol and one of her main influences. No stranger to the Franklin household. As a babysitter to the Franklin children. After Barbara Franklin's separation and eventual death, Clara spent as much time at the Franklin home and with C.L. as much as she could, watching the children, something Gertrude was not a fan of. According to Willa, their relationship blossomed and they were in love. Gertrude swore that C.L. Franklin was using Clara for more members. New Bethel was already packed each Sunday with over 4,000 members in its heyday. Adding Clara to their Sunday service angered Gertrude, as Clara Ward sang for free during many services. According to Willa, Clara was living under duress and by the control of their very own mother from the start of their career until now. The one and only vacation that she had ever taken in her whole life was planned in secrecy and taken with C.L. Franklin to the Holy Land, which they switched their schedules behind Gertrude's back and had the most peaceful vacation to Clara's knowledge. Whatever Clara owned belonged to Gertrude practically. Even her Baldwin Hills home had things off limits. Gertrude didn't even like her frying fish because Gertrude hated the smell. Even the plastic-covered couches were off limits in her own home. She had worked so hard for everything she had and still lived as if none of it belonged to her. Perhaps if her father was alive, Clara would have had a healthy balance in her life. But her mind was already trained to Gertrude's superstitious beliefs that bad luck was ever present. Gertrude had an itemized list of bills, all of which Clara had to pay and could not overextend it. According to Willa's book, Clara could not even use the very things she paid for. To make matters worse, Gertrude discouraged Clara from going to any doctor for her persistent headaches. Willa would urge Clara to go anyway against their mother's belief of bad luck. That they had to keep up with their show dates, and it was nothing but the devil causing the headaches, and to pray them off. The workhorse was finally tired. And Clara was reaching her end. It was the beginning of the end for Clara. Had Gertrude finally done too much? Just a year after the Amazing Grace recording, Clara would be brain dead from a massive stroke and would pass away at the age of 48. Leaving Gertrude virtually destitute with only a fur coat and ring, living with Willa in the end. Known as a quiet woman, with such notable hits as Surely God Is Able, Packing Up and many more. We honor Clara Ward for her contribution to music.
Meeting tonight.
Music has always been a beacon of hope in the African American culture. No matter the era or struggle, the songs of perseverance and that strength kept those alive who had faith despite the struggles. During segregation, merciless killings of blacks, many have sacrificed their lives just to allow us to vote and live as we are today. Even those who didn't look like us even paid the ultimate price with their lives.
Little house I told you about, darling, with that little picket fence. And after seeing this, baby, I know you'll be convinced. Don't you know? All of this can be mine and yours. Don't you know when we are made as one? I remember when you lived just around the corner. I could call you up any old time.
Well, all right. Oh, when the saints go marching in the old town, in the old town, now let us kneel in the old town when he will hear and be will be giving bread from heaven. Come and be them a cheer. When you stop singing, they'll keep ringing. Tell the story of his glory. It will warm it, it will warm it. Conversion, Christian, fire, big bells ringing, everybody singing, brother, watching Kennedy's watching something, burning, coming up, shouting, 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 everybody happy, Lord, happy to serve the Lord. Let us kneel down in the old town. Now let us kneel down in the old town when he will hear and be will be given bread from heaven. Come and meet them a cheer. When you stop singing, they'll keep ringing. Tell us of his glory. It will warm it, sinners, conversion, Christian, fire, big bells ringing, everybody singing, watching, sons and daughters, coming up, shouting, 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 shouting.